I started writing a memoir about my humorous experiences while I was hitchhiking, and and I decided to gradually move it into being a novel. So, what makes a good memoir? First of all, I think a good memoir should read like a novel, including a compelling plot, interesting characters, consistent themes, imaginative memoirs, and the story should be something that has some universal relevance, meaning something we can all relate to. And a good memoir doesn't really read like a diary, meaning that unnecessary scenes and fillers are skipped over, and memoirs tend to focus more on why something happened or how it happened than what actually happened. And successful memoirs, tend to feature, famous people and unique situations. So as I was writing, why did I end up deviating from the memoir format? Well, first of all, I'm not famous. I only wish that I were Bob Dylan, but I'm not Bob Dylan. Some of the things that happened in my real life were really kind of boring. And so, but they explained how I got from one place to another, so it was hard to drop them from the memoir format. Also, there were just too many people, especially since it was a road trip. There's so many people that kind of appeared and then disappeared. And so it's hard for a reader, I think, to follow that many people. And most importantly, I realized the road trip was a metaphor for the narrator's inner journey, reconciling the past and future. And of course, this can be a characteristic of memoirs also, but I wanted it to go further. I realized that other characters can also pursue their journeys. And I also saw an opportunity to provide a slice of the Vietnam era, especially the impact of the war and the hangover after the war. Also, I realized that if the narrator wasn't me, I could have a more consistent, ironic tone and find humor more easily. And I wanted the book to be an entertaining read and a novel. And as a novel, there's less pressure to explain things, so the action can move more quickly. So what did I do? I lied. And I lied a lot. I dumped any real life scenes that I thought were less interesting, and I wrote new ones. And I squeezed some of the scenes that I kept, that I retained, to eliminate any unnecessary details. I also reimagined characters. Many characters were combined so they have a richer history and contribute more to the overall story. And a lot of characters I just dropped. And I invented new characters when I needed to enhance the drama or humor of the story. I also invented new scenes to fill in the story arc. And this allowed some characters to reappear and extend their own stories. So the story of Flash's road trip is told in parallel to the story of his marriage and his recovery from the military. And I manipulated the timeline of his personal events to reflect those journeys, but I maintained the consistency of the background historical details. I wanted the novel to be true to the Vietnam era, so I kept all the quirky cultural details. So I tried to write a fictional story that could be true, populated by characters who could be real with personal experiences that might have happened. And it was fun to write, and I hope you get some fun out of reading it. So I'd like to read a scene that from the novel that's largely drawn from my experience, but I admit I squeezed it a bit to enhance the effect. You might think of it as the way you might tell a story over a couple of beers. You want to enhance it a little bit, and it describes the narrator's first night on ADAC. And just a quick summary of the novel. It's set in 1973 and is a story of a recent Vietnam era veteran, his unraveling marriage, as I mentioned, and his hitchhiking trip. And his first night on ADAC is told as a flashback during one of his rides. In this excerpt, the narrator Flash has just hitched a ride out of Los Angeles, and so we join him in the car. After we finished the joint, the driver inserted an Allman Brothers tape, live at the Fillmore East, and turned it up. Maybe it was the almonds or my vector to Las Vegas where I planned to visit Phil Briones. But my mind drifted back to my first night on ADAC, Phil, and offered to share my stash, a pillowcase, Joe's Pillowcase Red, which I just smuggled onto the base in my underwear. That night, we bounced down a series of gravel roads extending far from the base lights and any signs of humanity. Phil had organized a car party with Billy Sullivan and Jerry Fenn in the old black Buick that I was destined to buy from him a few months later. On the dash balanced two small bookshelf speakers wired to a portable cassette deck blaring Elizabeth Reed. As the honored guest, I rode shotgun next to Phil. My job was to keep the speakers from falling, which is not that easy. Blasted by rain and wind, the car rocked on its clasped springs and scraped bottom as we drove through deep holes and pools on the abandoned road. Lightning burst through thick clouds and revealed a mountainous landscape devoid of trees, with rivulets of water flowing down and across the road, as if we were crossing a stream bed. My new comrades laughed and said not to worry. Phil produced a bong, not wanting to waste any of my precious weed by rolling joints, and Billy handed around a bottle of Taylor's sweet pink Catawba wine. Wasted and not at all comforted by their claims about the safety of the road and the sturdiness of the Buick, I thought we might die. "We don't call her the Dreadnought for nothing," Phil said, patting the cracked dashboard. We swung down an even narrower path, and Jerry yelled up to Phil, "You can't cross here. It might be washed out." "It's cool," Phil yelled back. "We were up here in the Jeep last week, and the road was fine. No problem." "But the tide's high, and it's storming," Jerry persisted. "And this ain't no Jeep. It's the fucking Buick." "Hey, Phil," crooned Billy. "Jerry says it's raining." But Phil would not be diverted from his planned route. "We have to show Flash what ADAC is really like." The road narrowed to one car width with an ocean of water on either side. A wave crashed up and over the car, inspiring Jerry and Billy to hoot with pleasure. I clasped the wine bottle like a crucifix when a second wave crashed up from the other side and doused the car again. Waves crashed us from both sides in a sickening rhythm as the old Buick continued to inch along. Finally, I burst, "Where are we?" I felt like the Pharaoh crossing the dry bed of the Great Red Sea with walls of water crashing down. Phil turned to me. His voice echoed the calm, rhythmic tone of a tour director. "To our right is Lake Andrew, really a large lagoon, and to the left is the Bering Sea. Lake Andrew is fresh water." "Not for long," Jerry chortled. "Looks like the sea wants to take it back." After one high wave teetered above us and collapsed like an office building, Billy yelled, "Punch the damn pedal. I ain't drowning tonight." Phil pushed the speed up to about 10 miles per hour, which is all he dared, given the Dreadnought suspension and the condition of the road, if it was a road. We finally turned off the estuary and climbed to drier ground, over gravel with rocks the size of watermelons, where we stopped to finish the wine and quiet our nerves before returning to the base. My initiation complete. Less than a day after I got off the flight from LA, and I knew what ADAC was like, a washed out road with waves crashing from either side. Every time I thought about Phil, I remembered how he parted the sea in the Dreadnought that first night we met.